In recent years, systemic practitioners have challenged the view that we are who we are because of individual or internal factors. They talk about the idea that our sense of identity, our notion of self, of who we are, is socially constructed. This means that the context we are in will have an effect on how we define ourselves and how we perceive others. Several systemic psychotherapists have been more interested in how interactions between people can contribute to the way we may perceive ourselves and others. They have created positioning theory. In our lives, we take positions in relation to others, and the positions we may take will define what we may say, how we may feel, and what we may do. Depending on the positions we take in our everyday social interactions, we continuously attribute cause to other people's behaviors. We give them intentions. This DVD is about a few applications of positioning theory to systemic practice. Dr. David Campbell is an eminent clinical psychologist and systemic psychotherapist who works at the Tavistock Clinic in London. In recent years, he has been interested in how positioning theory and family therapy can come together. He has widely contributed to applying positioning theory to systemic practice. We asked him to give us a definition of positioning theory. To do so, he first explains the notion of discourse.
To define positioning theory, you probably need to start with a good definition of discourse and discourse theory. So if we assume that social groupings, families, organizations, societies create discourses in which they communicate the things that give meaning to that group and to the way they interpret the world. Every family, every society has discourses. So we have a discourse about child protection, for example. And the discourse that we have about child protection is different in the UK than it would be in other countries. We put different amounts of money into it, we have different values about it, we have different trainings and so on. So that creates a discourse. Now, within any discourse, there are positions that are available to you to take. Society offers you positions that you can take in order to be a self, to be a person, to be a subject. They're called subject positions. So if I want to contribute to a discourse about child protection, I have to look around and say, well, what are the ideas and what are the possibilities for me to contribute to this? And then I can say, I do believe in this, I do not believe in that, and I've taken a subject position within a discourse that's available. Then positioning theory is an explanation of the things that influence us to take certain positions, and that we, for example, are part of a process in which we're positioned by other people. So we're influenced by others within a certain discourse to say certain things and to see certain things. And when we take a position, we also influence others. So it's a reciprocal process. And the positioning theory is trying to look at what it is, like what is the moral obligation that is implied when we take a position. What are we trying to do with other people? How are we trying to influence them? How are we influenced by others? What kind of rhetoric do we use? What kind of language becomes involved in our positioning? So it's a big field, but I find that it's a little bit too broad for me, so I want to find a way that I can use it clinically in a more narrow setting. That's why I've developed this model of looking at the polarity lines and seeing how people influence each other by positioning other people.
Positioning theory therefore helps families to explore their beliefs and action in relation to others. The following clinical example is an illustration of how a positioning technique called semantic polarities can help the therapeutic process. This role play is about a couple consulting a family therapist as they are experiencing difficulties with their young daughter. The couple is having a conversation about when their daughter is not listening to them. The therapist invites them to think about their relationship to their daughter and introduces a polarity line between strict and not strict. The conversation will allow the emergence of themes that were not explored before in therapy.
Well, the only time she messed up with me is when she goes into one of her moods. She has, these mood things, and but most of the time she does as I say.
Okay. So if you can just bear with me for a minute on this, and on this line I'm going to put at this end extremely strict and at the other end not strict. And where do you think you are on this line today? Where would you position yourself?
Well, it's very different for me because it depends how I feel, at the time. Because I have mood swings as well, you see.
Okay, then I understand that things might change according to the way you feel. But let's take today. Where would it be today?
Well, today I think I would be in the middle.
Okay. How about here?
Yeah.
Okay. And Elena, where would you put yourself on this line today?
I'd probably put it a bit further up here, more like there, sort of halfway between.
So near strict.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Elena, you put yourself near strict today, and Jimmy has put himself further towards not so strict. So what do you think about that? What do you make of that?
Well, I think I'm generally more strict with Kima than Jimmy, because she doesn't behave the same way with me as she does with him.
Jimmy, why have you put yourself here today?
Well, I feel quite, stressed today. And on a day like that, I think I'll let her get away with more than I would usually do.
Okay, and then on a day when it hasn't been so stressful?
I'll be probably nearer to there.
To here, okay. And what would be different about your behaviour if you were nearer to this end?
Well, if I was feeling okay, she wouldn't talk back to me like that.
So what would you be doing that would put you nearer this end?
Well, if, she was like talking back to me, I would probably, put her in her room. She wouldn't be allowed to, come out. I would say, that's it. And not let her sort of just get away with it. But you see, normally if I do that, she would calm down very quickly and then not make any more fuss. But and then she apologizes. So it's it's about I would be much more firmer.
Okay, so I'm going to put some firmness down here.
But today, because I'm not feeling 100%, like, she wanted ice cream and I just got it for her. But if I'm feeling okay, I'm much more strict with her. I would be much more there.
So I was just wondering what you meant by not being 100%.
Well, I have this high blood pressure problem, and then sometimes I'm just not feeling, I'm feeling very low. I'm just like picking her from school, and then I feel just really tired, and we get home, and I just crash, just sit on the settee, fall asleep, and she watches TV, whatever she wants.
So I'm thinking on a day like this, it's much more about Kima looking after herself?
Yes.
So Elena, what do you think about what you've heard?
I found it very interesting. I've never really thought about it before. There are times I come round and he's lying on the settee, and I know he's sometimes not 100%, but I never realised how it affected him when he's not 100%. Kima would be asking, can I eat that, can I do that? And he would just sort of let her do what she wants. And I never realised it's because he wasn't feeling 100%. It's interesting because it is as if she's in charge of the situation when he's not 100%.
Then would you be able to say if he was in a position when he wasn't 100%?
Well, only if I saw him.
So who would know that Jimmy was feeling low? Is that the right word to use, low?
Yes, I feel tired, feel run down, no energy, don't feel doing anything. I suffered from depression in the past, and I made a comeback, but I think I've never fully recovered.
And did you know about his depression?
Well, not really. I mean, I knew a little bit about it.
What do you know?
Well, not much really. I mean, we sometimes try to talk about it, but he doesn't really want to. I mean, I really can have him on the phone and can feel he's not 100%, but he would never say anything about it. I mean, if I actually see him, I can tell that he's not okay. But if I just ask, are you okay? He'll say, I'm all right, I just need to get through the day. So it's very hard to get him to talk about it.
And how do you think it would be for you if Jimmy was closer to this end?
Well, I think I wouldn't always need to be so strict with Kima, because it wouldn't have to always be me the one who was punishing her.
We see in this clinical example how the semantic polarity technique helped these parents to talk about the father's depression and low mood in relation to how they parent their daughter.